I just got a big delivery of stuff from my main supplier, a full pallet of bulky materials, Fertility, and other stuff that I tried to stock up on at the beginning of the growing season. We manage a lot of growing space as part of this Red Gardens project, and as we continue to add more spaces, and I want to try new things, it seems I'm buying more every year. We have also been doing a lot of sorting of all the stuff we already have, trying to get everything in order before the growing season really starts, clearing out a lot of the mess in the storage areas, and doing a full reorganization of everything, something that was definitely needed. And I've been thinking about all this stuff and how most of it is not really necessary for growing vegetables, but useful in many different ways, and it can be easily justified having most of it as part of the diverse range of explorations we do. But when I actually look at it all, there is definitely too much stuff. And I thought it might be useful to go through all the different types of stuff that I have on hand, probably more as a cautionary tale than any advice. But there is so much of it, it would take at least 2 videos to even touch on it all. And this first video is mainly about all of the stuff that I need to buy and have available to propagate and protect all the plants that we need in the gardens. Seeds are probably the most essential thing in any vegetable garden, and I've bought in a lot of seeds from a few different suppliers, often needing to buy fairly large quantities with all of the space that we grow in. I have lots of different varieties of seeds from many different types of crops, and extra seeds that I bought in and stored in the freezer to get over the mess that Brexit made of our seed supplies here in Ireland for a few years, in addition to the disruptions caused by the global health crisis. I also have lots of different seeds from a few large variety trials that we've done, including a wide range of different varieties of tomato, onion, squash, carrot, and beetroot seeds, which add up to many different packets of seeds that I need to keep track of, store, and make sure are still viable. I've also been saving seeds with a lot of different varieties of bean seeds, which are easy to save but take up a lot of space, many tomato varieties, and bulk quantities of lettuce, beetroot, and radish seeds, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do with it all. I've also been buying in seed mixes for green manures and cover crops, which I've used a bit in the past, but want to explore different options a lot more this year in order to help build soil fertility. And I have a lot of seeds for growing microgreens, some of them in quite large quantities, which I didn't use so much in the last year, but plan to grow a lot more of this year. So I have hundreds of packets of seeds, most of them quite small and some of them quite large and bulky, and I really need to reorganize it all and do more germination testing and get rid of the older, less viable seeds. And I need to repackage a lot of the seeds I saved for sharing with others before the season really starts. I have also amassed a lot of propagation equipment, moving away from the collection of reused pots and makeshift trays that I relied on in the early years. I've bought lots of pots of different sizes, mainly for tomatoes and other large, long-season plants, and most of these get used each spring and are then stored for the rest of the season. There are also quite a few trays of modules, several different sizes that we use for a lot of different types of crops, and different size base trays, some with holes and without. We use a lot of these trays for soil blocks, which are made with a standard size blocker, which we use for most large brassicas and other plants, and a blocker that produces much smaller cubes that I find useful for starting slower germinating seeds. I also use the same types of trays for microgreens, which are much easier and more convenient to use than the trays I made a few years ago out of scraps of wood. And I was given a lot of trays with an open grill for a base that I find useful for potted plants and chitting seed potatoes. A recent addition to the propagation supplies has been a lot of grow bags in 3 different sizes, which I mainly got for pot trials and trying a lot of things out that don't easily fit into the plans of the other growing spaces. Many of the larger bags are already filled and are now objects in the landscape that need to be moved and kept track of, and we still have a stack of small and medium-sized grow bags hanging in the shed. The biggest part of the delivery I just unpacked was growing medium or potting compost, which justified the expense of filling a full pallet for the delivery. We use a lot of seed compost for starting seeds in trays and plugs, and also use it as a base for microgreens. The coarser potting compost has more fertility in it, and is used for filling larger pots, especially with all the tomato, pepper, aubergine, and cucumber plants we grow. It is also useful as part of the mix within a lot of the grow bags. And we use a specially mixed compost for making soil blocks, which seems to have the right mix of materials to hold together well. I have been buying in lots of bags of these types of growing medium from the same supplier for years, as I find it reliable and convenient. But I just bought a few bags of another brand of growing medium, which is produced in Ireland, that I want to try. And I'm planning to try a few more types of growing medium to compare, including ones that I mix myself. I've also been buying large bags of perlite and vermiculite, which are different types of lightweight filler that are useful to reduce the weight and increase the drainage and water holding capacity of the grow bags and pots. And I'm also continuing to collect other materials for use in propagation, including leaf mold and decomposed wood chip, which all translates into more bags of bulky material and more space needed to store it all. I also bought in a fair amount of concentrated fertility, and this is probably the type of material that I buy that I have the most options of, apart from all the packages of seeds. Some of the gardens that we manage don't use any concentrated fertility, and others heavily rely on a range of different types of imported powders and pellets for growing vegetables. Each year I buy in bags of pelleted chicken manure as a form of general fertility, and I've been buying in a few different forms of high nitrogen material, including hair meal pellets, seed meals, and a few other forms of plant-based nitrogen I want to try, as this often seems to be a limiting nutrient in the gardens and grow bags. I also have a load of conventional fertilizer that I bought last year for use in the grow bag experiments, which was really cheap to buy in a large sack of, but now I need to store it. We use a lot of seaweed meal to provide trace elements for a few of the gardens, and have supplies of gypsum, lime, soft rock phosphate, and high potassium rock dust, mainly for the complete organic fertilizer that I mix up for use in the extensive garden. We also have bags of basalt rock dust and bentonite clay I've been experimenting with, and containers of liquid fertilizer with different proportions of NPK, and liquid seaweed, all of which we use for liquid and foliar feeding in the different gardens. And I have a collection of much more concentrated compounds used mainly in the complete organic fertilizer mix, including copper, boron, magnesium, zinc, and manganese. We only use a very small amount of these concentrates, but still have enough of it around and have to store it carefully. It is the sheets of material that I buy that are most obvious and visible in the gardens, especially over winter and into the spring, when a lot of the crops in the gardens are covered to protect them from the elements and from being damaged by birds and other animals. We have used a lot of woven ground cover fabric as an essential component within a few of the gardens, and it is useful for covering over beds to protect over winter. We also use this material for clearing rough ground, especially with the abundant amounts of scotch grass and other pernicious weeds in the landscape. I have not been great at keeping this stuff in good shape, as it needs to be lifted and repositioned regularly, sealed at the edges to prevent fraying, and kept in use rather than just storing it. We also use a lot of crop covers and horticultural fleece, which are really useful in combination in spring to protect from frosts and the high winds. We use a lot of netting during the growing season to keep the cabbage butterflies off the brassica plants, and since we started using these wide pieces of netting, the caterpillar damage has been almost non-existent. And we keep the same netting over some of the plants for a lot of the season, especially to prevent the birds from eating the hardy overwintering brassicas. We use a finer mesh to prevent carrot fly from getting in and damaging the roots of carrots, though we haven't been so successful with this, I think mainly because we haven't covered the crop early enough and sealed adequately around the edges. This material can also get holes in it, especially from the claws of birds and other animals that can push aside the strands to make numerous holes that are large enough for the carrot fly to get into the crop and lay their eggs. And more holes can be made if the material isn't handled carefully, and it takes a fair amount of time to work the strands in order to close over the holes, but at least it is repairable a lot of the time. I buy in rolls of all these types of materials or covers and cut them down into lengths appropriate for the gardens, many of which are in use at any one time, but there are also some stored depending on the season. I used to get pre-cut lengths, 10 meters long, thinking that this was long enough to cover the 10-meter beds of the family scale gardens. But that was a mistake, as the cover needs to be longer than the bed in order to have enough to wrap down and secure over the ends of the bed. So I have a collection of old sheets of this fabric that are not really long enough, and others that are a bit too damaged to use, but are possibly still useful for other growing spaces or uses. Some of this material is only made to last a few seasons, others can be useful for many seasons if cared for and stored well, which I'm trying to get better at, as I've lost some material in storage, especially the fleece that rodents seem to like building nests in. So we have many sheets of different types of material that need to be stored when not in use, in a way that prevents any damage and makes it easy to identify appropriate sizes and conditions when we need them. And we are still working on the best method for that. And I also have invested in a lot of rolls of this material, which significantly reduces the cost per sheet. And it means that I have a supply when it is needed, especially as it was so hard to get many things a few years ago. And I'm able to supply some to friends and neighbors when they need it. But I still need to make space to store all the rolls and to keep them from getting damaged. There are lots of other things that we have that could be included in this broad list of things that I buy in or collect in order to propagate and feed and protect the plants in the gardens. There are also so many other options, equipment and supplies that I could buy in for propagating and protecting vegetable plants in the gardens. And a lot of other tools and other stuff that I make, assemble and repurpose to help grow more vegetables in these gardens, and to save time and effort, but that will be the focus of another video. It is of course possible to grow vegetables on a small scale without the use of all this stuff, especially if it's possible to build fertility on site, as only a few simple tools and some seeds might be needed. Going through a lot of what I actually use, it is a lot of stuff, with a lot of expense and impact on the environment. And I want to explore the possibilities of growing vegetables with very little stuff, which is the focus of a new garden that I want to establish. But I also recognize that most of this stuff can be quite useful and can save a lot of time and effort, especially if I want to grow a wide range of vegetables over a long growing season, and to grow a lot of food in a relatively small space. And I'm also interested in trying out new things, as a big part of this Red Gardens project is to explore a wide range of different approaches, and I need to try out a lot of different things in order to be able to compare them. Each method or approach or material has its benefits and its downsides, but the amount of material and stuff that I need to buy in to manage particular gardens and to manage this Red Gardens project in general does bother me at times, especially when I consider the amount of time and space that it takes to organize, store, and look after it all.